Greetings and bienvenue, MITZU. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Void Walker. Alright/X/ I have a problem and I don't know where else to go to find information. I've spent the last couple of years digging through dissertations on shamanic culture, research documents, and medical studies, and I still can't get to the bottom of it. I'm hoping anyone out there has a similar experience, knows someone that may have, or has access to some kind of literature on similar happenings. I'd also like to preface this by saying I do not believe this is truly paranormal. I don't think it's aliens, demons, or government mind control. I'm enough of a skeptic to put those by the wayside, but won't entirely rule them out. I'd just like to make sure there's no legitimate other answer before I go down those roads. It is starting to become worrisome how little information I can find, however. So for the past 3 years, I have been having continuous dreams. What I mean by this is that every time I sleep, the dream continues from where the previous one left off. The sense of continuity is staggering. It's similar to waking up in bed in the morning. You can remember almost every decision that led you to that point. Dream memory. This is the main thing I want more information on. I've never been able to find anything resembling this. Some people experience something similar for up to a week, but it doesn't last years. It's quite literally an entire functioning world. I've also experienced my own death in these dreams. It's a surprisingly common occurrence, especially considering the continuity. Every time I die, there's a rushing sense of vertigo, followed by a quick blink, and then I'm back into the dream world. Very similar to standing up too quickly. All this said, I've also gone digging for the cause. I've tried adjusting my sleep schedule. I quit smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, and eating sugar. I've moderated an exercise cycle and tried multiple adjustments. I've been to a doctor, a psychiatrist, and a chiropractor. I've even spoken to a few of the local natives that still hold their natural beliefs in high regard, which is where the thread title comes from. That's the closest thing I've been able to find in any culture, and it's still not close. This is not lucid dreaming. This is not an astral projection. I have no idea what it is, but it's not normal.
This is very interesting and weird at the same time. I have had continuation of dreams, but only within the same night. For example, I wake up to use the bathroom or get water and then fall back asleep only to continue my dream. But this rarely happens. Do you know when this all started? Do you feel well rested when you wake up?
Waking up to use the bathroom is the perfect comparison. It's exactly like that, but it doesn't matter how long between sleeping. I've even stayed up for about 3-ish days straight and still dropped right back in where I left off. I've gone searching for an exact start date and can pin it down to a roughly week-long window, but there was no noticeable events around the time. At least no major impacts on my life. There may have been world happenings I'm unaware of. They started late July 2016. As for the well-rested, it depends mostly on the context of the dream episode. There are no true nightmare episodes of whatever you'd like to call them, but the ones where I die a couple of times leave me with a sick feeling when I wake up. Still feel rested. It's just like having a thought you can't shake for the rest of the day.
I did a search in Spanish to see if anyone has something similar but couldn't find anything. The fact that you go through death itself is strange also. I have never met or heard of anyone going through death in their dreams. People normally wake up. I wonder if this is paranormal, or is your brain wired differently? Did something just change 3 years ago that allows your brain to keep dreaming where you left off? Sorry you have to go through this, and it must be frustrating to find no answers.
I sincerely appreciate your efforts. I honestly hadn't considered searching in other main languages. I've only dug through native stuff and things in English, since that tends to be the majority of medical literature. I'll be expanding my cultural horizons. There have been enough people on this planet for this to have happened before. The dying is one of the main things that has led me to research the problem so heavily. If it was just continuity, I might not mind as much, but dream dying is such a weird feeling that I can never shake. The brain being wired differently is a fair path to go down, and I still wonder the same myself, but I've been cleared by a general practitioner and a neurologist, so modern medicine is currently unable to provide an answer. I've been researching brain mapping lately, and think they may at least be able to provide a guess as to the cause, but they still seem a few years out from being truly helpful. I really don't mind the dreams all that much. It's not driving me insane or anything. At least not yet. It's more like having a sore tooth that you keep poking with your tongue, but it's always there all the time.
I'm not sure if this is something you would want to consider, but would you look into reaching out to universities or hospitals doing research in this particular field? They would then study your brain as you sleep. You're most likely exploring your mind's world. Careful with that shit. If you meditate or just close your eyes and focus on visualization of that place you go into in your dreams, you can access it without sleeping.
May have found something in that vein. Thank you for the suggestion. This is along the same path as some of the native interpretations. I haven't tried using the dream as a fixation when meditating yet. That's also a good suggestion, thank you.
I've had similar experiences with dream memory, where previous actions have affected the landscape in previous dreams and where I can remember these dreams in great detail. I have never died in them, though. Usually in near-death situations, I find some way of escaping. For me, there are two dreams that have a continuous plot-like structure. Both take place in the town I live, and both usually occur after a major event. For example, when I stopped smoking or when I finished my exams, these dreams reached a peak occurrence. Maybe there's a trigger to them in your life you might be ignoring?
If you're at all comfortable, please illuminate more on your own dreams. I would be greatly interested in hearing them. I unfortunately haven't experienced any life-changing or traumatic events, haven't made any major decisions, and quitting smoking didn't seem to have an impact. But your experience sounds incredibly similar, particularly the cause and effect on the landscape, and that strikes me as odd.
I believe there's a screen cap story that would be really helpful to you. If anyone has it, please post it. It was about another Anon who had continuous dreams about a place he called the Foundation or something like that. It was this large facility that all his dreams took place in, and it had an orange pale light the entire time in the facility. Anyone have that one? If he moved anything or changed anything, like opening a drawer or moving a box, for instance, it would be that way when he came back. And try this before you go to sleep again, dude. Try to meditate and imagine your dreamscape and then try to manipulate something about it while still conscious. Just imagine really hard that you are changing something small, like opening a door or such. See if it changes when you go back to dreaming. Couldn't hurt to try. Also, would you mind elaborating a bit about the dreamscape? What's it look like? What do you do, etc.?
As for describing the dream itself, it's become so long-running that it's fairly hard to succinctly describe. The setting is a hybridization of the cities I've lived in across my life, made up of buildings that all have that impending sense of symbolism that dreams have. There's a hotel in the center of the city, where all the characters live, that's impossibly tall and radiates this sense of doom almost. The entire city is surrounded by a forest, similar to the one I live near now, that has some weird type of shimmering outline, like the buildings on the outskirts of the city are inconsistent. Some dreams they'll be there, other dreams it's forest. The characters are all hyper-realized forms of archetypal personalities and fragments of memories of people from my past, normal dream stuff. The monsters and scares, the things that kill me, are oddly consistent, though new ones do show up now and then and become recurring themselves. One of the most vivid examples is this pale, formless ghost thing that hides behind shapes. The only distinguishable feature is that its face is made of laugh. That probably sounds schizophrenic as all holy hell to read, so I'd just like to say again, I'm a man of science. I've been to doctors.
That's pretty wild, man. And there's no real plot to it either, no? Strange. Have you tried gathering intel from the characters? Treat it like a video game just to see how it goes. Ever read the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan? Dreams play a huge role and actually exist as an alternate world in those books. It's called Tel'aran'rhiod. Reading up on that might give you some ideas to try as well. Like when you're there, try to summon a weapon or emulate someone or something powerful that can fight the baddies. Try teleporting when you're in danger. Treat it like a game. You clearly don't die for real, so find out what the objective is. And if you don't like that tower, break it down.
There is something resembling an overarching plot, but it's incredibly vague. Essentially, every dream is underpinned by this inescapable urge that I need to find someone. Each dream generally has a plotless adventure. They remind me of Seinfeld almost. Things just seem to happen, albeit weird things. For instance, I often have dreams that take place in an airport on the edge of the town. Anytime I have one of these airport dreams, the plot always has to do with finding a way through it, like it's some giant postmodern glass maze. I often hold conversations with the characters, but it's incredibly strange to describe, and often only makes me confused. An example would be me asking, "What's your favorite color?" and the response being, "The moon looks largest in the morning." I have not heard of those books, but I'll definitely be looking into them. Thank you greatly for the suggestion. I do have some mild form of control while in the dream, but it's not quite full lucid control, even though I'm usually aware I'm dreaming. Biggest impact I've been able to have is essentially stopping the dream time to help escape from one of the monster things. I'll type up a longer description here in a minute, see if I can get the general gist of the main plot down. It's just very difficult to put into words. I generally use creative writing to kind of work around it with myself. Attempted synopsis. Remembering the exact beginning is incredibly difficult, but I know it started with the hotel previously described. Pic kind of related. Sorry, it's a stock image. Couldn't find anything else that resembled it. But the floors of the hotel are like rings around the center circular lobby and seem to go infinitely high. Most of the initial dreams took place entirely there and seem to revolve around the search for the missing person. This missing person I'm searching for is a complete mystery to me and only serves as a feeling or a drive while I'm down there. It reminds me of a dog in a car. You can chase and chase and chase, but what do you do when you finally catch it? I would consider it a literal dream MacGuffin, but there's this intensely personal feeling wrapped up in the imagery that makes it hard to shake. Every dream is underpinned by this odd atmospheric glow that seems to permeate from every object. It's like things have an almost invisible outline that radiates like heat from hot pavement. The glow is orange, but not normal orange like we have in the waking world, more of an orange that you feel rather than see. The sense of perspective and architecture is one of the most intense aspects of the dream. Things seem to bend in on themselves and don't quite have solid shapes, as though everything is organic. One odd thing I've left out thus far, because this feels like literal schizo bullshit, is that every morning I wake up at 3 a.m. It's not the Baader-Meinhof effect either. I hoped it was. I figured I was just waking up near that time and only checking the clock around then. I started writing down the exact time I would wake up. I stopped writing them down after 2 weeks straight of seeing it at exactly 3 a.m.
I frequently have significant trouble sleeping, so my relationship with dreaming therefore also suffers. I do, however, on occasion find myself locked into a sequence of continued dreams, which does sometimes last a significant duration. The longest sequence, comically, came from playing Bloodborne. Every night for almost a year, I would consistently find myself in Yharnam. The dreamscape was staggeringly vivid, focused sometimes on character interaction, both with characters and events lifted directly from the game, as well as original creations, and other times on combat, often taking place entirely within Chalice dungeons. They stopped basically overnight once I got Platinum, despite the fact that I continued to play. Now, more interesting was the sequence in which I found myself almost immediately thereafter. Every night for several weeks, I found myself in the cold place, much of which being an indescribably uncanny rendition of the area in which I live, depopulated and covered in heavy snow, with specific recurring locations in an abandoned rail freight yard and a fortified ski lodge, neither of which exist in reality to my knowledge. This sequence started with a particularly vivid dream of being pursued by these weird mimic things which appeared almost perfectly human up close, but which from a distance could be identified by their awkward loping gait and exaggerated motions, initially running room to room through a large old house, eventually escaping through an attic window, and running through the countryside to the next house I came upon, repeating for maybe 3 houses before waking up. I wasn't caught, but someone with me was. The next several nights saw me in this huge abandoned rail yard with a small group, like 2 or 3 others, scavenging for usable supplies amongst the abandoned freight cars. I remember it being deathly quiet, and purposely so, as we believed that even the slightest noise would give away our position and draw the things to us. Insanely tense, as you can imagine. One scene in particular stands out in my memory: cracking the door on a freight car wrong, flying open and slamming into the outside of the car. We huddled down in the snow with our guns trained on the horizon for what seemed like ages, but nothing showed. Deciding we were safe, we gathered what we could and proceeded back, at which time I woke. The next 2 or 3 weeks took place in a fortified ski lodge. The things knew we were there, but the location was entirely defensible. The building itself dug into the mountain and the only approach built up with ample barriers and ramparts of packed ice and snow.
We were safe, but goddamn if those things didn't give their all trying to get to us. I recall many instances of being sent on patrols, running a circuit around an impromptu perimeter, formed from a built-up bunny slope trail, which itself was only accessible from within the building thanks to the ice fortification, but offered a full view of the approach. I shot a bunch of them, and bullets seemed to take them down just fine, but we never seemed to find any corpses, nor see their kin drag them off. Nothing. It was like they just evaporated. The attacks became less frequent with time, and I recall several cabin fever instances among the refugees near the end of the sequence. This story ended when I woke up to the fact that I was in a continuous dream sequence and changed into my character and just went out and killed what must have been hundreds of them before waking.
I have a very industrial setting that manifests as tunnels under my city. That thread has given me the urge to put down more regarding my dream, so here's an old attempt of mine at describing the tunnels. Twisting geometric patterns weave themselves out of the nothingness, bending around each other, dancing back and forth between the here and now, singing harmonic notes against massive glass walls. There are demons here, shattering against the cold sky, exploding in a cacophony of brilliant overtones. The diver has surfaced and now disintegrates into industrial screeching. Hissing smoke and molten metal pouring down, the blue glow has faded to the recesses of the mind, tucking away the horrendous dancing patterns. As the screech of the explosion fades into an awful siren, and the weights are finally removed, the ship comes into port and the wake breaks against the docks. Blinking, eyes heavy, but that horrible siren would need to be found before it could bore deeper into the skull. The hissing smoke is still as real as the siren, but that glow long gone. There is metal all around and concrete underfoot. An industrial hellscape manifests as an impossibly long hallway, and somewhere far ahead, the siren, the cries of a dying ceramic sheep scratching itself along. Moving, burrowing, seeking, there is no light in this place, only the sounds and heat to illuminate the darkness. Fragrances of rotten meat hang and twist in the air, wrapping themselves into the thickening atmosphere. Dust and decay, crackling linoleum now peeling from the concrete, the siren has come no closer on approach, only seeming to fade further away, laughing as it shakes deeper and deeper into the void, descending as rapidly as the diver had surfaced. Notes I've taken regarding the dream. Again, because the plot has become so convoluted, it's near impossible to describe in exact detail without writing a literal tome, but the notes tend to convey the general ideas. Shapeless perimeter forest, faceless, smiling, translucent bodies floating between trees, sewer grates leading to massive underground industry, hidden madness, fog that sings, subconscious hotel, center tower room that branches, rooms of personality, memory and fears, window walls, New Retro City, overarching setting, cogwork, shifting architecture, folding skyscrapers, shores in the ocean, religion of insanity, priest talking to stained glass, obsessive townsfolk gathered outside, milkmen distribute cryptic messages daily based on priests' ramblings. And here's some quick jottings from various points. These are less creative than my normal writing and stick very close to the literal dream. It was an addiction to some and became some form of twisted religion to others. But whatever the motivation of each individual, every resident of the town eventually found themselves called to the other side of the glass. Always silent, always listening. Some enterprising local milkmen took it upon themselves to begin recording the priest's second sermons, recording them in a barely legible backward script before copying the message to small strips of paper in the same font, one for every man, woman, and child in town. These were distributed the following morning, wrapped around small vials of porcelain milk, one for each member of each household. Voices from inside the walls, voices from people long past and gone from this place. The overworkings would cease should such voices make themselves heard, but such inevitability keeps them hidden, far kept away from the peaking lights and grinding cogs. There is a diner out along a lonesome highway, caught perfectly between nowhere and someplace, staffed by competent waitresses and a cook known for his reasonably priced burgers. It was at this diner that I would often find myself, seemingly plucked from the sky like a falling star, suddenly and immediately aware of my surroundings, as though I were a fish ripped from my lake. It is never the suddenness of existence in such a place that bothers me. Rather, it is the inevitability of arrival from somewhere uncharted that tugs at the corners of my mind.
Try becoming lucid and just become king of the dream. Go into it with the thought that you are an unstoppable force and that you are in charge. Lucid dreaming can be tricky, but if you master that, you'll be the ruler of your dreamscape.
I can manage mild lucidity, but I'm trying to better control it. I imagine if I were able to, manifesting the person I'm looking for would lead to some form of resolution, but that may be wishful thinking. Was down for a long one last night. Watched the day-night cycle change a few times before I went exploring the underworking industrial tunnels, and was hoping I might see something similar to the other person's dream. Full lucidity, fully aware of the dream, but was still unable to exhibit control on the dream. The dream seemed to know that I was more aware than usual, very hard to describe, but it's like it was trying to hide parts of itself. Normal dream logic, something doesn't make sense, but this was like it was trying to imitate making sense while I was observing it. Still can't shake the feeling that the MacGuffin person I'm searching for would help illuminate the problems. Have an inescapable feeling that the underworkings industrial tunnels are part of the problem of finding them. Always feels maze chase-like while I'm down there. The dreams set in or near the airport have that similar maze feeling, but without the impending foreboding sense that the tunnels give off. Realized I can hold conversations with myself while down there, essentially holding a dynamic conversation with the ego voice in the head. Very strange. Wondering if I might be able to find some question to ask that would help, although it seems to also operate on the non sequitur logic. Haven't experienced that before, and wondering if the increased lucidity had a part to play, or rather it was just a normal dream manifestation from interaction. Picture attached is what the tunnels remind me of, eerily similar.
I suggest you read the Carlos Castaneda series of books. Here is a compilation of most of them. It is not the full bibliography, but it is enough to get you started. The concepts will be a bit foreign, but it can at least explain some of the issues you have, mainly the continuation of your dream. Problem with dreams is that you are dreaming with a body that has a different structure. The reason you are able to always return is because the body is simply connected together. Should you venture far, however, chances are that you can disconnect from the body and your physical body may die in the sleep. The doctors will rule you out as having an infarct in your sleep. The second option is the option of the death evaders, and that means if you are better trained, you can simply disappear along with your physical body, but this requires a lot of energy and discipline and practice to be able to perform it. It is a walk into the unknown, and as far as I have seen, there are some checkpoints or places where you can come across while you dream. One of them is the place of the flatlands with many giant spiders buried in individual pits, half of the body extending above the pit, each having one person to entertain. They most likely try to eat the person, but if you are lucky, you will be tickled. Another place is the orange cloud wall. If you venture behind it, nobody knows where you will end. Purple clouds or anything purple is to be avoided at all cost. I have not found an explanation as to why this is.
It's interesting that there's so much fictional literature that explores these ideas. One of the first things that I found to help give me a sense of reality when I first started having them was writing. Thank you for the suggestion. Greatly appreciate having something to look into.
The books are not fictional, however. They are just his autobiography before he became part of the shamanic tradition. The ones that are not there have the exercises which can be observed here. It is called tensegrity, and it was a thing at some point. The author disappeared into the dream world, never to return here.
Far deeper rabbit hole than I had realized. Thank you for the illumination. A consciousness body based in tensegrity is an incredibly interesting line of thought and helps to satisfy the more physical part of the problem.
I had this dream where I was walking through this abandoned mall. Not all of it was abandoned. It had 3 levels, which were all massive, and the architecture looked like something out of the 90s. The 2 levels were dead, but still had people walking around in them, and some stores were open. The 3rd level was completely abandoned. A security guard who worked for the mall let me access the 3rd floor, but he warned me that there were homeless and other strange people who walk around on the 3rd level. There were these huge, winding, almost wavy, endless escalators going up to get there. When I got there, the paint was chipping off the walls. It was very dirty, and there was smashed glass all over the ground. There were some shady people walking sound near me, but I couldn't see them. I just heard sounds in the distance. While exploring this abandoned level of the mall, I met a girl who was a year younger than me and her friend. The girl's name was Jenny, and her friend Tina. I hit it off really well with Jenny, and we began exploring the abandoned mall together. We were talking and having a really good time. I woke up in real life. It was 2 a.m. This is not part of the dream. I actually woke up. I couldn't stop thinking about her, so I went back to the dream. I was in the same abandoned shopping mall, but it was in another section of the mall, and I was missing my pants, my wallet, and my phone. I was freaking out, but not because my pants were missing. I was freaking out because I needed my phone, so I could call an Uber and get out of this mall. I was also afraid someone would steal the contents of my wallet. I also hoped that Jenny had put her contact information in my phone, and maybe she could pick me up and get me out of this mall. I was running around looking for someone who could help me find my wallet and phone. I eventually found someone who worked for the mall, and they helped me find my belongings. I was putting on my pants and putting my wallet and phone in my pockets, and suddenly Jenny showed up. We ended up having a really good time, and we talked and hung out at this mall for a long time. We were holding hands and hugging, and I could tell we really liked each other. The mall had the most insane architecture you've ever seen, with revolving pieces. Again, 3 levels. We called an Uber, and Jenny told me that the mall is set to be demolished in a day. We're sitting in the back of the Uber and just holding each other, and she's holding my hands, and it feels so soft and nice. When leaving the mall, there was this outdoor mall area which was also dead and sort of abandoned. It looked like something out of the 80s and 90s. I look out the window, and Tina is just sitting in a chair outside one of these dead stores. She sees me and looks away. She looks kind of bothered. Jenny puts her number in my phone, and I wake up again. The dream ends. What did it all mean, anons? How did I connect to the same mall twice after waking up? How was I able to find Jenny when I went back into the dream? I'm never able to dream the same place twice and actually find someone from a previous dream. I miss her, and I wish it was real. I woke up and started searching for her contact in my phone. It wasn't there.
In my opinion, this dream should be interpreted psychologically. Your consciousness is coming into order with the rest of your mind.
I feel like the abandoned mall is symbolism for what my life has become. At the same time, I'm still thinking about that girl, the way she held me hand and cared for me so much. I want this IRL. I need this in my life.
Your reading of the meaning of the mall is correct, but you don't know what to do with it yet. Think about it. Why would you go back to this terrible place? Isn't that stupid? Good comes from hope, and we must first generate hope within ourselves. Jenny is the warmth and goodness that you find within yourself to find in the outside world. She, your good tendencies, lead you beyond the mental mall. Jenny's number is a memory of the warmth you feel after waking up. You call her, that is, you remember. Follow that hope, and then you will leave your mental mall. And who knows, maybe you will meet love in the real world. And even if you don't, you'll feel better about yourself.
Shit. Let me preface this by saying that I don't believe in the paranormal, and I've never been to this board, except in a quick passing a few years back when I was trying to expand my so-called 4chan horizons. Anyways, this morning was it. At around 4:30, my dog started barking viciously, and I mean to the point where it startled me awake thinking that they were fighting or something. However, they were barking at my bedroom door, which I always keep locked. I sat up in bed and told them to quiet down. They ran back to me and jumped on the bed but kept looking at the door. Now, keep in mind that I live alone. I sat there in silence for about 10 seconds to see if I could hear anything. That's when I heard 3 distinct knocks on my bedroom door. I'm a /K/guy myself, so my immediate thought was burglar. So I grabbed my bedside pistol and walked over near the door. I yelled out, "Who is it?" and got no response. After about 10 more seconds, I yelled it again and included that I'd call the cops. No response. Finally, I gathered enough balls to open the door and flash my pistol light out into the dark. I didn't see anything, and I hadn't heard anything either. The dogs went out and did a loop around my place and didn't seem to find anyone. So I cleared my place too. There was nothing, no one. The front door was still locked. The windows were all closed. So here I sit a few hours later. I never went back to sleep, but I've been dwelling on it. I finally decided to post here since it's 4chan and I'm stuck here forever. I've still got my pistol near me. Now I've watched a horror movie or 2 in my day. I found them to be fun, but never really scary. However, I am not totally unaware of the significance of the number 3 in these types of situations. Long story short, am I fucked/x/?
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentexts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.